Claude just dropped Opus 4.8, and I wanted to see if it was actually meaningfully better than Opus 4.7. And what really caught my attention was the dynamic workflows part. People are talking about it's more intelligent, which it is a little bit, right? If you look at the stats, it's slightly smarter. Now, what I really want to talk about is a tool called dynamic workflows. Now, looking at the documentation that Claude has made available, or Anthropic has made available, and which will be linked in the description, you can see the stats, some of the changes. They've also said it's more honest, which is great, because right now, one of the biggest things that I think we struggle with is it'll just make stuff up even though it's wrong or doesn't know the answer. Now, there is one specific thing I want to look at called dynamic workflows, and I'll also link the dynamic workflows documentation as well. But essentially what dynamic workflows are is instead of you talking to Claude one sort of conversation at a time where you're like, give me this, outputs a response, you check it, and you go back and forth. What dynamic workflows is you give it a task, it then thinks of how many agents it need to complete that task, and then the most important thing is those agents will then verify each other. So agent A will do a task, and then agent B will verify agent A's work. It'll run this session or these sessions, and by the way, there can be hundreds of agents. It'll run all of these, and then at the end, only then will it actually give you the end result in a report of some kind. So what I want to do for this video is I'm going to do something that we do quite a bit here, which is stress testing voice AI prompts, because as you know, we sell voice AI agents quite a bit, and one of the most challenging things is making sure that our prompts are battle tested. The old method, which is just giving it to Claude, telling it try to find all the issues. I'm also going to put it into a dynamic workflow to see is it actually meaningfully better. So without further ado, let's jump in. So I'm going to open up a new Claude session here from your terminal, from VS Code. All you have to do is go into Claude, and then 4.8 should show up. Now, if you do not see Claude 4.8 showing up here, what you can do is just type in the word Claude update, then look for any new Claude models, right? Now, in this case, it says multiple installations found. That's fine. However, I already had the latest model, so we don't really need to worry about that. Let me open Claude back up. Now that we're on Claude 4.8, or now that we're in the terminal, the way you actually use the dynamic workflows is by using /workflow. And by the way, if you do want to read the dynamic workflows documentation, I thought it was super helpful. The link will also be in the description. Now, the thing that I want to showcase is how to actually use this dynamic workflows. Okay, yeah, so this is the actual right page. Now, when you want to use it, all you have to do is, so the way to actually run a workflow in Claude Code, you just have to type in the word workflow into whatever prompt you're putting. Now, if you need to use the word workflow for something else, I believe Control W lets it ignore it. However, in this case, I'm going to tell it, I want you to run a workflow that's going to battle test one of my prompts for my voice AI company. This is a prompt that we use for one of our clients, and I want you to sort of pretend to be different colors, and so that we never have to, so that we don't have to test on our customers. We want to really battle test this voice AI prompt, and I will attach the voice AI prompt below. And you'll notice that the word workflow is almost like in these rainbow colors. And I'm then going to go and grab a voice AI prompt. In this case, I've already got one from Vafi. I'm then going to put it in here, and then I'm just going to let it do its thing. Now, workflows are going to consume a lot more tokens because obviously a bunch of agents are running at the same time, but that's kind of the point. And now while that's working, I'm then going to go just into regular Claude and put the exact same request. And just like that, I can now let both of those run, and I will be back as soon as I hear back from both of these. Now, while that's doing its thing in the background, let's actually talk through the documentation. So if you read this, essentially what it says, it talks about when to use a workflow, what is an example of a workflow, as one is how to save them and run them. So I'm going to sort of skip through a bunch of this stuff because we already spoke about it, but essentially how to use it is you put the word workflow in whatever prompt you're using. You can see the progress of all the different agents, then it'll give you a report. You can also bundle these different workflows, or you can, I guess a better way to say that is that you can save a workflow. So let's say you already have a predetermined task. In this case, it's like the example they use is the word deep research. Well, you can have the word deep research as a saved workflow and then your question below it. In this case, it's just, it fans out web searches on a question across several angles, fetches and cross-checks the sources it finds, votes on each claim, and returns a cited report with claims that didn't survive, cross-check and filter it out. Requires a web search tool to be available. So this will grow on itself as you use it more and more and more. You can save different workflows. You obviously can have Claude write a workflow, and here's how you run it. Another way of using this workflow thing is by using something called Ultra Code, which I haven't really used yet, which I want to make a video on, but essentially it's just a setting that Claude can use to use extra high reasoning alongside workflow orchestration to essentially come up, or to essentially be a really good coding agent. That's kind of the whole point. Now, if you do want an Ultra Code video, let me know and I will absolutely make one because I think it would also be super helpful. There are certain limits to workflows. For example, the maximum number of sub agents is 1,000. This is just to prevent runaway agents. You can't give it input while it's running. You have to stop it and then restart it. The rest aren't super necessarily super relevant, and you can also turn them off if you'd like, but I thought this documentation was super helpful to help understand how this stuff works. 4.8 just asked me what it wants me to simulate. I don't want to be involved, so I'm just going to tell it you simulate everything. Your call. The whole point is that I want to see what it comes up with on its own without my interruption. And this thing is still thinking on the workflow side of things. So I'm really curious to see how it turns out. And now as you can see, so Claude actually came back first, the regular one, and it gave me a bunch of scenarios, which are cool. Scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. It gave me about 9 different scenarios, and this is helpful. However, a lot of these are passive. There's not much for us to do with this passive. I want to see what breaks. And now it's telling me, do you want me to run a nasty round, a second one? And this is kind of the issue that we're having to deal with, just running all of this ourselves and having to manage it. Not really what we want to deal with. So let's see what the workflows came back with, and it's still thinking. So the dynamic workflows just came back and it said logged in Ava on Sun 4.6 through scope. I also pinned the real calendar, and now it says it's going to create 2 blind agents, and it is launching. It's going to start actually creating all these different scenarios and launching all these agents. So let's see what it comes back with. So I just put it to run. And just for context, it's about to make about 250 calls, which is obviously way more than 7 that we just saw a few minutes ago. So the difference is huge. And you can see here, it already used 500, almost 600,000 tokens, right? And I think it finished about 71 agents. It was about to use probably 1 million tokens. So this does burn through quite a lot of tokens. So I'm curious to see where it's going to end up with. I can see just numbers climbing up and up and up. And if you ever need to stop a workflow, by the way, you can just do /workflow and it'll stop. You can also view, by the way, what's actually happening. So simulated calls and then judge. The 2 out of 4. It's about halfway through. 2 out of 5. So it's going to run about 250 calls. Interesting. So you can see sort of the response of every judge's completed the audit. It's 7 and my gradient via structured output tool. This is a clean text handling of the immediate human request transfer. Fantastic. Now let me escape out of this. And now just for the sake of time, I'm going to pause it. And then I'm going to go into workflows to see them. So these are the current ones. And I am going to tell it I want to essentially finish it now, just so it can give me the current state of affairs. And then if I just want to resume, I'm just going to press resume. And we're back out. Shouldn't have too many more calls left. I think only about 100 or so. 6 minutes and 2.4 million tokens later, it sounds like the dynamic workflow has been completed. And now the cool part was I get to see the report of everything that it found so that I can actually start making some stuff with this. So I'm really curious as to what it's going to come up with, because it was a fairly simple prompt. And keep in mind, the other one finished like almost 7 or 8 minutes ago. 212 agents, 2.4 million tokens, 15 out of 20 passed, 5 failed. Okay, let's figure out what failed and why. So it created 2 files. I see a transcripts.md, which is every call that was made. And then I also see a battle test report. And it says scope, calls simulated when it was, 15 out of 20, QA report, executive summary, headline risks, so silent lead loss. In session 5 said all done and will be in touch, but never called. Submit booking inquiry, interesting. So never called the tool. That's really important to know. Scope prepon reschedules, ran check availability twice, and shot new dates on a support reschedule call. Word center explicitly reserved for Sam. That's also a really important one. This is actually super helpful because this is an actual problem that I had. Verdicts have to keep running, but shift the call tool getting fixed before scaling the volume. Okay, makes sense. Perfect. And I can now have this report on running. It's a fairly detailed report as well. It's also giving me what I should fix, draw tool boundaries, for our knowledge base lookup before. These are all simply prompt updates that I should make. Beautiful. What's working well? And with that, this report is obviously a lot more in depth. It took a lot longer, but I believe it's also a lot better. So on that note, you now have a better idea of what the difference between just using Claude regularly versus dynamic workflows. This is something that's available. Keep in mind, probably the biggest challenge, the biggest issue with it is how many tokens it consumes. However, from an intelligence perspective, I also think it's a lot better. If you want that video on Ultra Code, let me know, because I think that's going to be the next one's dropping. And by the way, thank you for watching. Now, if you actually want to go super deep into anything Claude Code related, my business partner Mark, we run one of the biggest AI communities on School, over 1,400 people in there. The link for that will be in the description below. If you're serious about learning Claude Code, I would highly recommend you join. Thank you.